Greetings, everyone, especially to our university officials who are present in this Zoom meeting. Welcome to this session about managing virtual classroom under the project on developing global Filipino teachers funded by the Commission of Higher Education. Also, warm greetings to all our project management team headed by our former dean and project leader, Dr. Ethel Abang. So I am Dr. Janet Mananay, your speaker for this session. I'd like to begin with a game, and I'm sure that many of us are familiar with this. I'll be sharing with you 4 pictures, and underlying the 4 pictures is actually a word. 4 pics, 1 word. I'm sure we're familiar with this, right? So if you know the answer, chat it in our chat box. Okay, let's begin. What could be the word underlying these 4 pictures? Okay, you guessed it right. The word is leadership. Okay, leadership. How about the second one? Correct. The word is planning. So it involves a calendar. There's a lot of deep thinking, just like the person below. And we can see also questions like 5 W's and 1 H. So it involves a lot of planning. The third picture. I hope one guessed it right. The correct answer is the word is tasks. So there is already a clue there with the first picture above. That is to do. So if there are things you need to do, these are also considered tasks. Things that needed to be done, to be accomplished. How about this picture? What could be the word hidden here? You guessed it right. The word is rules. So there are rules, just like the traffic light. Those are traffic rules. Okay. And last picture. The word is order. Correct. Order. So you put order, you put the proper ways of doing things. There is order. Okay, the reason why I'm sharing these words with you, because just like the words rules, leadership, order, tasks, and planning, these are all related to management. When you manage, you have to have leadership. When you manage, there are set of procedures that you need to do. When you manage, or there should be order. Okay, and there's a lot of planning. So just like classroom management, you as the leader in the classroom, as the teacher in the classroom, you need to have the command. You need to put order. You need to make sure the tasks are done. That is why we have to set procedures and rules or guidelines. So today, our objectives will be reviewing terms and concepts, because I'm sure that we are already familiar with this. We just need to review a little bit to refreshen our minds and to look at old things with new eyes. Another task will be identifying the characteristics of today's learners, because our learners have really changed the way they are learning, the way they are behaving. We will also be discussing the challenges of the virtual learning environment, and we'll begin with a definition of what is really the virtual environment. And lastly, we'll be sharing tips and strategies for online classroom management. So sit back and be engaged as we begin our discussion. So we all know that when we say classroom management, it refers to a wide variety of skills and techniques that teachers use to keep students organized, focused, there is order, attentive on the different tasks that are to be produced during a class. So this refers to the different strategies or techniques that we employ as teachers so that there is order in the classroom, because a classroom that is topsy-turvy, a classroom that is not in order, or a classroom that is not well managed may have difficulty in terms of achieving the objectives of the lesson instruction, and the other tasks. So the first thing really is to put order. The first thing really is to make sure that everything is in place before lesson could really, or instruction could really begin. So generally speaking, effective teacher tends to display strong classroom management skills. So if you are an inexperienced teacher, or let us say a novice, or you are still in the first stage of teaching, there might be some problems like disorderly classroom, because you still need to really master the art of classroom management so that you will become an effective teacher. Okay, so when do we say that you are effective and ineffective? So according to my idol Harry Wong, he said an effective teacher is one who is able to manage a classroom, while an ineffective teacher is somebody who disciplines a classroom. So we have two important terms here: manage or manages, and disciplines a classroom. So what is therefore the difference? When we say discipline, it is in a way reactive. So something has already occurred and you react to it. That's why you need to discipline. So it is problem driven, mean to say, if there is no problem, then there is no need to discipline. Okay, discipline has a negative consequence. Therefore, there is punishment that is involved. And then it promotes compliance. So some students will comply, they will do this, they will do the task because there is the fear of being disciplined or the fear of putting punishment. Okay, and it stops deviant behaviors. There is really, it's something reactive, no, as mentioned earlier. While if we say classroom management, it is proactive. So before the problem has risen or has occurred, you are already putting like how do you call that? You're already putting means and measures to ensure that the problems will not occur. It is productivity driven. It has rewards as increased learning time and promotes responsibilities as it produces predictable behavior. So to compare further, if we say discipline, it has something to do with how students behave. There are rules which will allow us to control the students' behavior, and discipline plans these rules. Okay, while classroom management, on the other hand, deals with how students do their work. So it's basically putting procedures, not just like what Harry Wong has been telling, procedures. These are in place to ensure that students are productive and successful with a given time. So procedures are important in classroom management. Now, let's look into who are our learners. At the heart of any educative process is really our learners. So if we try to look the comparison, if you were born between 1944 to 1964, then you belong to the baby boomer group. Okay, and then if you were born between 1965, a little bit later comes the Generation X. And then if you were born 1980s to 1994, then you are considered millennials. So I think I belong to the millennial group, no? Just like the others who are here. And maybe there are also some here who already belong to the Generation Z. So they are born between 1995 to 2015. So Generation Z. Now, if we focus ourselves on those, I think most of our students belong to Generation Z. So if we look into the characteristics of Generation Z learners, according to research, they want to have a say in their education. They are very empowered. They want to have some suggestions on how they want to be educated, on how they want things to be done. Generation Z learners also have high levels of digital literacy. That's why in some literatures they are called digital natives. So compared to parents or teachers, they are more literate in the use of the internet or gadgets maybe. And then Generation Z learners also want you to tell them when you have messed up, you need to apologize. So we have to be able to know that our learners are Generation Z, therefore they will be able to know if we commit some mistakes. We have to be honest in saying that, oh, I'm sorry, we have to apologize, rather than really pretend, no? Because the Generation Z learners want us to do that. Generation Z learners also want to connect with others in real time and on their own terms. So they are very collaborative, they are very connected because, of course, of the influence of the World Wide Web. So as I have mentioned earlier, they collaborate amazingly well. So it's easy for them, no? So say, for example, they just meet, they have just met the person right here, right now in the web, then it's so easy for them to share information. There is no issue of sometimes confidentiality. That's how open they are to others. They collaborate pretty well. And they can also do multitask. They can manage tasks very well. Like if they are reading something, they can even do other tasks. And they learn by really doing. So learning by doing. Okay. So this is a very recent output, a very recent discussion by a researcher in 2021. No? So I wanted to share this really with you, because if we look into how we manage a classroom, we have to be able to know the kind of learners that we have, because we try to tailor fit the way we do things depending on their characteristics. Another important element that we need to understand is how we navigate the virtual environment. So for the past 2 years, we have been learning via the virtual environment caused by the pandemic. And of course, with the Industrial Revolution 4.0, we are catapulted into the virtual environment. What does virtual environment really mean? It means that it is a kind of environment wherein there is no physical contact or location or space. So the teacher or the instructor and the students are separated by space. And then there is also even a separation of time, because sometimes we learn synchronous and asynchronous. We'll go to that later. So the virtual environment is also a type of environment that is normally housed within the learning management system. So there is a system in the computer or in a hardware or software even, wherein learning will be managed. Okay. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the space and the time may not be the same, because it can be a mixture of both asynchronous and synchronous experiences and engagements. So this is also based on research by Transradius in 2021, which is very, very timely for us. In fact, right now, we are in the virtual environment. You are learning from the series of lectures given to you via, I hope, synchronous, but though this is recorded, some of you might receive the recording of this. That becomes now asynchronous learning. Okay, so in some ways, online classroom management is easier than managing a live classroom, but it does not require a different approach than the traditional classroom management. The key is to be pragmatic, meaning to say we can have a mixture of this and that, but we have to be very, very practical as well in our ways of doing things. So we have to have the courage to manage what we can, the serenity to accept what we cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's like the prayer, no? I remember a prayer from St. Francis, no? To accept the things that we cannot and to know the difference and to accept the difference as well. So we have to be able to manage with what we can. So we have to also be gentle to ourselves. This is our capacity. This is our limit. This is what we can. Now, we should not be very rough on ourselves as well. So looking at this video, This is based on research as well. The kind of experiences our students have experienced during the time of online learning. Let's watch this.
All across the country, students are facing unprecedented challenges.
We're all really struggling.
Basically, it sucks.
Definitely less interested.
We've been following 16 students since the first day of school, and they echo what was found in our massive national survey.
I've never felt so much stress in one school year. Like, I wish things could go back to the way they were, like just going to school every day.
The study surveyed 75,000 students from 2018 to 2020, and in the fall of 2020 alone, found that over 56% of students said their stress related to school increased compared to the time before coronavirus.
I definitely feel very stressed. This year has been super hard. There's been a lot of nights where I have cried because of the things that I didn't get to do as a senior. So I'm definitely less emotionally stable than I have been my whole high school career.
This semester, I probably get around 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And then compared to last semester, I was getting 10 to 11 probably.
I do remember having a couple of breakdowns. And I was texting my friends why am I having so many mental breakdowns? Online school is giving me more stress than regular school did.
In October, we saw that in our student in Chicago. Allegra went from frustration with online glitches
The whole thing would just kick me out.
to a near meltdown.
I don't understand. And I asked the teachers for help.
And looking back now, what was your lowest moment of the school year so far?
It would be that time I cried over my physics project. At that point, I was like, this online is not going to work.
The study also found 41% said their effort toward learning decreased.
My attention definitely decreased.
I'm still surprised at how much online's affecting me.
That was John in Pennsylvania last December. Now he says he's constantly distracted.
Snowblowers, dogs barking, parents going in and out, and it really can mess with me.
Another finding, 50% of students said the strength of their relationships with teachers has decreased.
I remember one time I kind of sent a follow-up email to one of my teachers, and it took him almost 4 days to respond.
Do you worry about how kids are doing this year?
Oh gosh, I worry all the time. I've been doing this for 23 years, and I just care about kids, and I care about our young people who will be our leaders. And so I'm hopeful that this time can be a springboard for new. I think we've learned a lot of new things that we can do in education, in the world, and how we interact with one another. Do I believe kids will be okay? And will they make it? Absolutely. Will they be able to do that alone? No.
Learning how to manage
I'm just trying to think positively.
I'm trying my best.
in a year filled with the unexpected.
All right. So I'm sure, although the context here is in the US, but most of the schools in the different parts of the country also experience the same, because we are also dealing with the same
All
kind
across
of
the country,
students.
students are facing unprecedented
So,
challenges.
let me just turn it off. Okay, moving on to some of the tips how to manage the classroom based on my experiences and based on the experiences of other teachers I've talked with and based on research. Here are important things that we can learn from. First is involve students with establishing norms. So if we try to recall the kind of learners we have now for Generation Z, they want to have a say on their learning. So basically, if students have a say in creating the rules, they will be more likely to follow them. So at the beginning of the school year, we have to really be able to talk to them, set things clear, straight, that these are the things that are expected of you, but what can you say about it? You need to haggle. Is there some things that you can delete here, add here, whatsoever? So that they also have their share of the kind of rules you are putting in or the kind of procedures you're putting in for your classroom. For example, how should the class be started? How do you want the class to start? Should we start with a prayer? Is that okay with you? It's like you're putting things with also considering their suggestions. No? So how should they raise their concerns? Do you want to email me? Do you want to talk to me about it via chat? So there should be open communication about these things. How should they answer the questions? What are the consequences for their misbehavior? Ask them so that since they are the ones who gave these suggestions on the things that can be done, then they are, how do you call that? They are most likely, no? So they are answerable to this because in the first place, they're the ones sharing these suggestions. How should they behave? When is the best time for consultation? So these are things that establishes the norms in the classroom, specifically for online or virtual environments. Next is you have to test the technology beforehand. So it's tempting to try out every new app that comes along, but the most effective online teachers don't get distracted by new applications. They focus on learning a few tools really well. So there are a lot, not plethora of online apps and games, for example, but we can't just take it all, everything, no? So we have to choose which ones are effective, which ones are easy to navigate, especially for you as a teacher, because remember, we are also learning our way through technology. So you test it first, not that you're already in the class and then you try to, wait class, I don't know what happened. I don't know how to do this. So it seems to the students that you are not ready. So there has to be testing of technology beforehand. Emphasize engagement. That's also one important thing. Students working online have access to endless sources of information. They don't need a teacher to explain something for 45 minutes. Keep whole group sessions short, no longer than 10 to 20 minutes long, but instead engage your students through gamification or collaborative activities. So if you just keep on lecturing for 45 minutes, many of them will really be bored, because to begin with, there is Mr. Google and everything is there. And there are YouTube tutorials and YouTube videos that explain even better than the teacher. So make it short, but provide meaningful and engaging activities so that students will really learn by doing. Remember, they want learning, they learn by really doing. So emphasize on engagement rather than you talking and they listen for 45 minutes, they get so tired and bored for that. Next is communicate clearly. So this is very, very important, not just in the virtual environment, but even in the natural environment. Communication is really very important. You need to write down instructions clearly, then just giving it to your students verbally. Sometimes if you say it verbally, they might not be able to get it right away. So better yet, say it, okay, verbally give instructions, and at the same time have a screen that or a slide in your PowerPoint that has every detailed information or instructions on what to do, so that when they read it, there are no more questions, or if there are questions, very, very minimal would be raised to you. So students would also appreciate quick and timely responses to their questions or their queries. Use accessible messaging applications such as Facebook groups. No, a lot of our students are really into Facebook, and you know, if you just create a Facebook group, it's so easy for them to access and even ask their questions. And of course, I hope that we also give timely responses. Make sure everyone is heard, okay? Make sure to note the amount of time a student speaks in class. If you notice that a student is talking excessively or it's already dominating, she's already dominating the class, then you can politely cut him off by thanking him and calling another student right away. Especially for those shy or quiet students, make sure to ask them some questions so that they will feel that they still belong. Some of my students in class, when I try to interview them, one of their frustration is really the feeling of being left out. So because in the virtual environment, sometimes we only pick those students we already know. So how about those quiet ones or shy ones? We don't even know if they're still there. So please, we have to ensure that everyone is heard. Give opportunities for others to be heard as well. And then we also need to praise our students. Announce and praise the desirable output of your students. So there, nothing goes wrong with really praising, no? And really, it gives motivation to our students to work more and more, to do magics, to do more and be more. Most especially for their output. As to their written outputs, always leave a comment or words of praise so that our students will also feel that we have really given time in reading their output, okay? Most especially for those students are really working very, very hard. So they want us to really know that they're doing their best. So we also give our output. Be firm but considerate. Make sure to let the students comply the tasks given to them, but allow them to make negotiations. So for instance, a student should not be excused from creating a video, but should be allowed to make modifications, maybe because of the limitations of his or her gadget, and then maybe because also of internet connectivity issues. So we can also extend deadline. But be firm. The assignment will still be submitted, but I will be considerate in terms of giving the deadline. Sometimes teachers would just give a task that they can't even do. I remember one teacher of my son gave an assignment, make a website about, my goodness, grade 2 or grade 1. No, students cannot even make websites by themselves. So we have to also give something or assign something that we ourselves can do. Okay. And then allow bad times during online classes. So this is also something that's very practical because nobody said that it was easy. We are all adjusting abruptly to the challenging times. That is why it is important that we do not also embarrass our students due to some factors they cannot control. For example, they were not able to mute their microphone when they try to join our Zoom meeting. Don't say, hey, why are you not muting? Or you try to embarrass, no? Are you not listening to my instructions? Something like that. We have to be considerate. Students should not keep quiet just because they don't have what the majority have. Some of them lack quiet workplaces, low-tech gadgets, good internet connectivity, and so on and so forth. So let us just be considerate and let us be passionate with the conditions that we are in right now. So I remember there was a song, again, it says, nobody said it was easy. So our situation now, it's not really easy, and we have not been here before. So everything is really new, although we have been in the pandemic for 2 years, but we're still adjusting for the new normal or the now normal. And so managing our classes will really require us teachers to be firm and considerate, firm but considerate, establish procedures at the very beginning, and keep our students engaged all the time, because these are the successful recipe towards effective teaching, effective classroom management in the virtual learning environment. So let me just leave you with a quote from Harry Wong saying that the most successful classes are those where the teacher has a clear idea on what is expected from the students, and the students know what the teacher expects from them. So it's basically setting up expectations to begin with. Just like when you start the day, right? These are the things that you need to do. So just like you start the class, online class or virtual class, these are the procedures that you need to follow so as to ensure order and a very well managed classroom. So I will be posting in the Google Classroom the activities and worksheets related to classroom management. There are some situations and you need to choose the best thing to do. There are also Google links for you to read, or websites for researches that I have prepared for you to read and to react. Please stay tuned for all these activities in the Google Classroom, which you will do during the asynchronous session. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have learned a lot. Daghang salamat. This is Dr. Janet Mananay once again. Thank you very much.